Yes, that's very useful. Yes, for some time the department gave advances and then followed up with the exact amount that was owing further on. And I don't know whether we got away from that, but boy, there was a lot of uncertainty and stress in the community last year because of that. Okay. Looking at, this. Okay, we need to clear up. And I think this is all connected, but I have raised in question period a couple of times and in the media and other places an issue in which artists that were receiving monies through grant programs that were associated with generally a specific location. So initially through the Community Series grant, I think it was, any group that was associated or performing in a building that was owned by a municipality was told they would not be eligible to apply to that grant anymore, which was in their minds the same as a cut. And that got turned around, and they were told that wouldn't be implemented, but they would have to form themselves into a not-for-profit so they could apply to get the same money they had before, but it couldn't they couldn't be coming and be associated with a municipally owned building. Then there was the program that was the Artists in the School program. I think I may not have the right name there, sorry. So any school that received funding to bring artistic groups in that would work with the kids over an extended period of time, artist in resident programs, that kind of thing. It wasn't a performance, it was a working artistic experience for the kids. And that was, people were told that was being cut, that they'd actually had their last grant and that there would be no more money coming in this grant period. And both the member for St. Albert and myself asked the question of why? Why is there discrimination to this group of artists based on the fact they're doing a project in a school? That's discrimination based on where they're doing it. Okay, that was, the minister said he hadn't okayed that, and that was turned around or withdrawn. And the last group that's out there that is still being discriminated against are groups that are performing their work and their affiliation is with the location of a university. And that one, the minister has not turned around on, and I have asked him questions in questions period on that. So, for example, the difference between Mile Zero Dance and Orchesis, one's a dance group that's affiliated with the University of Alberta, and they have been told that that's it. They've already had their last grant. They had it last summer. It's over. And any other group, the U of A Mixed Chorus, the organ recital group, any arts groups that are somehow situated or associated with the universities have been told, game over. No more money flowing through there. Assistance for the book publishers as well. Game over. And again, I question why there is discrimination based on place. I'm going to connect the dots here, and I think this has to do with the minister's desire to have other ministries take over funding for groups that he believes are more affiliated with that location than with the arts specifically. But I'll let him tell me if I'm right there. So I'm looking for consistency here. If we've managed to recognize that it's inappropriate to discriminate against artists and arts groups that are affiliated with municipal buildings and artists that are affiliated with educational institutions, why do we insist on continuing the discrimination based on an association with universities and colleges? And I would like an explanation on that, because I don't think it's fair. I think if we're if we're a cultural ministry and we're trying to support artists, artists work all over the place. And I can tell you that when I was a working artist, most of my rent money came from doing things that were artistic, and certainly used all of my training, but I was delivering stuff in the police service, I was working for the hospitals, I was all over the place. And that paid a lot of rent money. So saying where you're doing it is somehow makes you ineligible for artistic grants, I think is inappropriate, but I'll let the minister put the explanation on the record. So I'm also wondering how we're going to get the communication on that so that it's if it's going to be carried through, so that it's far enough in ahead that people are able to plan for that. So going forward on my hunch that this is about following up on the minister's statements about, playgrounds should be paid for by the Department of Education and things, can the minister tell us if any ministers did respond to his encouragement and take up the gauntlet, take up the torch to fund the initiatives that were previously funded by Culture and Community Spirit? I'd be very interested to see if that happened, because I suspect the answer is no. And further to that, does the minister still believe that this is a viable approach to funding initiatives that fall between the cracks? If it hasn't worked so far, does the minister have any other ideas about how to convince these other ministers to take on responsibility for funding what he views as cultural and/or community-based funding through their departments? The other examples that he made were environment, creating water groups and that were then registered as not-for-profits and then applied for funding through SIP or CFEP, and he felt they should be funded through environment. And this is all coming to mind because I've reread the Hansard from last year's debate, and that was one of the examples that he raised. I'll let the sorry, just let me check here. Yeah, so I guess what I'm seeing here is a bit of ministry turf wars, and the casualties are the artists, which I would argue should not be the casualties in this war. And to cut them off and then hope that some other minister is going to pick them up, I don't think is the way to build our capacity for artists and the access to artists and to community-based programs in this province. But I'll let the minister talk about that.
Honourable Minister.
Well,
I might note that we're in our second 20-minute section.
All right, that's fine. There's a lot to go over there, but let's be perfectly clear. We haven't wavered at all from our commitment to focus on artists and providing support. These Artists in Residence program, that was something brought forward in our department, as I said here in the House. There are people in my department that can have their own ideas. There are people on the Alberta Foundation for the Art that can have their own ideas. But I can tell you the buck stops at me. And I never signed off on any document. I never asked anybody to look at cutting any of those programs. And there is no cut to Artists in Residence program. There was never any intention by this minister to cut those Artists in Residence program, and it will not be cut as long as I'm minister. The performance for universities and colleges, that money has not been cut. I don't know why you insist in going out and creating angst and anxiety amongst all of our artists by coming up with these things that are false. People in our department, other people may have proposed them, but that was never my intention. Again, never something I signed off on. We have to support our artists, and where are they going to learn if they have to, when they're in school, when they're in college, when they're in university? That is a foundation, a building block, and that's how we get to excellence. We have to support them from when they're young children, through our K-12 education and beyond, and to the point where they can be whoever they want to be. And as far as book publishers, they aren't turfed. They're not under Alberta Foundation for the Art. They're under Cultural Industries. For the last 2 years, the Alberta Foundation for the Arts Board has asked that they not be included under Alberta Foundation for the Arts. They are still part of our department, and book publishing and magazine publishing and songwriting or sound recording are all under Cultural Industries and under that line. And in terms of uptake of initiatives, the Minister of Education has said it is appropriate that new playgrounds in schools be built by his department. And that is a great step forward. I would love a lot of other people to be able to go and take that pledge, a leap of faith, but the Minister of Education stepped forward with that. And I also believe strongly that things belong where they belong. That's why horse racing is no longer my department. That's why bingos are no longer my department. And that's why major fairs and exhibitions have been transitioned out of culture and community spirit to agriculture and rural development, because that's where they're better aligned. That allows that minister to be able to utilize his resources for multiple different areas for the collective good of the agricultural industry and the rural community. So I don't think we've been consistent in that, and I will continue to work towards making sure that the dollars that are allocated to my department are spent with the stakeholders that we're entrusted for. And that is for our arts and cultural groups, that is for our heritage groups, that is for our not-for-profit and volunteer and community organizations. But as you know, Honourable Member, if you've been here for a long period of time, that it's not always possible to get what you want. And I was going to also mention that as far as the funding for those students in the universities and colleges, there's a juried process going on for selection of those grants right now as we speak. And just to look at a support of excellence, if you look at the front page story today in the Edmonton Journal, Ben Wheelwright and Quince Ritko Dookie are students at Victoria School for the Arts and auditioning for the National Dooley, sorry. And auditioning for National Theatre School. I know you're proud of that. And I remember when I was down in Montreal at that institution during Journée de Culture as part of Canada Cultural Days. And I looked up on the wall, and the donors, 25% of those donors are from Alberta. And that's something to be proud of. And I think we both agree on that.
Honourable Member.
We do indeed, although I'll just make a brief pitch for my alma mater, seeing as the two best performing arts schools in Canada continue to be the National Theatre School in Montreal and the University of Alberta Department of Drama here in Edmonton, which consistently produces the finest actors, directors, playwrights, and design masters of design in the country. And when we are proud of people like that, most of the kids from here, they audition in both places. And it depends on how far away from home they want to get, because generally speaking, our kids get into both places, and then they have the choice. And I chose to go here to the University of Alberta, but National would have been fun too, but my French was appalling. Okay, so I'm glad to hear from the Minister that there are no cuts to programs based on where the art takes place, because I will find the emails and provide them to the Minister, but I actually quoted it in my notes here, that there was one that actually says, as of April 1, 2011, the AFA will discontinue the Artists and Education Program. No new grant stream will be put in place to replace it or the old educational touring grant programs. That's pretty definitive. So if that's the one that got out there that hadn't been approved by the Minister, great. Glad to hear it. The other group I was talking about are not necessarily students at the university. It's any grant, artistic program, or arts agency or organization support program that is getting money, and they're affiliated with the university, not necessarily students. So the printing was part of it, because they have a printing press at the university, and they did do specific runs of books out of there. And they are not lumped in with the cultural industries, because they're very specific to the kind of work they do there. So a slight misunderstanding from the Minister there. Very glad to hear none of those programs are disappearing. I'm sure the others will be too.